Oh, hello, my name is Chris Roberts. I am on a little holiday right now. One night at this lovely hotel in the entrance. And then a few nights camping at Putty Beach Campground in Bouddi National Park on the Central Coast of Australia. The entrance holds a lot of memories for me. I used to holiday here with my family, often when I was on hockey trips, and yeah, at this time of my life, lots going on in my life, I thought that this would be a good chance to relax, rest, and read, most importantly. I have a massive stack of books, and basically we've got the next 4 nights to see how many of them I can read. I don't get a lot of time to read when I'm not on holidays necessarily, so this is just purely devoted to reading. Maybe I'll be in the beach and I'll be walking and doing other things as well, but let's see, what have we got on our book list? Well, first one, quite a short one, but is Orbital by Samantha Harvey. I've heard lots of really good things about this. Obviously, it won the Booker Prize last year. It's meant to be, from what I've heard, very kind of life-affirming, meditative, on the meaning of life. I love all of that stuff, so I'm very much looking forward to that one. We have The Great Gatsby. I love classic literature. For some reason, whenever I've gone to read The Great Gatsby, I've either just been extremely tired or not in the mood, and I know it's a classic, so I definitely want to get to that one as well. Lessons in Chemistry. This was a book that was given to me by a supervisor when I was retraining for my current work, who also just absolutely loved this book. I've heard lots of amazing things. Obviously, they've made a television series about it. Yeah, really excited to check this one out. This is Dusk by Robbie Arnott. He's an Australian author. Just reading this blurb and looking at this cover just sort of got me really curious. And yeah, I'm really excited to check that out. I love kind of books that can immerse you in sort of the natural world as well. So we will see how this one goes. Okay, 2 more. So this book is called Playground by Richard Powers. I've tried to read Overstory before and didn't necessarily quite get into it. But the plot of this book is just really interesting. It's 2 characters whose stories cross paths in this sort of futuristic world where they're sending autonomous cities floating out onto the water and exploring all these different themes of maybe this last natural resource that the world has. And so, yeah, very curious and interested to see if I can get through this one. And then finally, we have this book called Rapture by Emily McGuire. This plot is basically about a motherless child of an English priest living in the 9th century. Happens as she grows up when she basically gives her life to God. And I'm just curious about what those themes mean. I'm curious to see what happens in this book. I felt like I wasn't especially detailed, but I guess I just wanted to get through those quickly because I'll give you a more, at the end of this video, I'll give you a more in-depth review, if you weren't counting, was 7 books. That I know that is, if you don't know me, I'm definitely extremely ambitious. I have no idea how many we're going to get through. So enjoy seeing what happens over the next 4 days and how many of these books I can get through. And you'll see me, I guess, again, reviewing these at the end of the holiday. So enjoy. Well, hello and welcome back. I hope you enjoyed coming along the holiday with me. I had a really nice time. I was relaxed, I read lots, got a bit rainy towards the end of my trip, but overall, I just had a really nice time. But what you're all waiting for, how many books? Well, it was about 3.5. I'm probably halfway through Great Gatsby, so what you're going to see is a little bit of a cheat in essence from the premise of the video, is that I do want to review this, but I've just finished reading it. So at the end of this little section, you'll see another video of me having caught up and finished this, so that I can say 4 books and you can get 4 reviews for this video. So this Great Gatsby will be reviewed at the end. But I read very, very well in this holiday. Firstly, let's talk about Orbital by Samantha Harvey. I can see why it won the Booker Prize. This book is not really plot. It's more just an experience. I don't know how else to describe it. Of course, we've got 6 astronauts from all different parts of the world on this space station that's orbiting the Earth. And we get a picture and understanding in pretty intricate detail of what their daily life involves, about what space does to their bodies, about how the Earth looks and moves and changes according to where they are on their orbit. But really what this book is I guess, psychological, a philosophical kind of unpacking of what it means to be in space for months at a time. It also unpacks why these astronauts have decided to devote kind of their entire life towards getting into space. And it's really, really well written. It's obviously very short, but it took me surprisingly a long time, more than I thought, to get through this book, because it's very dense. And that's due to the impeccable writing. The writing in this book is just beautiful. It's exquisite. It's really, really lovely. And I think what struck me first is just how immersive the book is. It's just, I don't know how to describe it, but you do feel like you are also in the space station gazing back at Earth. And there's a lot of, space travel going around at the moment. We've just had 6 women go to space on a flight, 11-minute flight. Katy Perry was on that flight. And they talk about this experience of kind of gazing back at the Earth and realizing that it's fragile and needs to be cared for. And that's what this book kind of does. And Samantha Harvey describes the beauty of looking back at the Earth so incredibly. And it's so heady, it's so dense. Like, she's talking about continents moving by in the blink of an eye, and she's talking about seeing massive landforms and seeing, the lights in the cities. And feel like I'm not doing a very good job of describing it, but when you are reading it, you are blown away by the preciseness of the imagery and the detail that she puts into her writing. And you feel like that you've gone off on a spaceship, and she's bringing your head up to the same kind of level of where the astronauts are at. Suddenly you are looking down at Earth and going, I'm not used to kind of thinking or reading about Earth in this way. And for that, I think it's very, very clever and well done. I guess what is kind of a negative and a positive, probably my only negative, is at points this can feel a bit repetitive. As the orbits move along, I felt myself slightly kind of getting tired of almost the same sort of themes or philosophical ideas coming up. And I thought, well, we've kind of done this before. But the astronauts are also having the same feelings, the monotony, where they're just going, we do the same things. We don't get to sleep, like lying down. We miss out on all of these things from Earth. Our bodies are kind of becoming shapeless and our muscles are atrophying. And, there's a relentless monotonous at the same time paired with they find these unexpected moments of beauty and of grandeur and of being absolutely addicted to being in space and not wanting to go home. And I think this book, whether it's intentional or not, also gets you into kind of the monotonous headspace of being in space, the day-to-day, everyday sameness that can come along with being with the everyday grandeur or beauty. So, all that to say, it's a really, really good book. It touches on some pretty interesting themes about the world and sort of how we all need to get along and how boundaries and borders sort of disappear when you look at the Earth as a whole, or when you rely on each other for your literal survival when you're in a space station with all of these different members of different countries around. So I definitely recommend. I can see why it won the Booker. It's probably a 4 out of 5 stars for me. And I definitely reread it again. It definitely, at points, sort of just made me appreciate life in general. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. Definitely recommend that you check this out. It's a short but dense read, and I think you'll enjoy the really beautiful prose and the philosophical ideas. If you're into that, don't come here expecting an action space sci-fi blockbuster space story. It's meditative, but it's really beautiful. Okay, next book I read was Lessons in Chemistry, and I can see why it is so beloved. I can see why they made it a TV show. It's probably my favorite read of the whole of my 4 books that I read. It's probably the most, I guess, commercial book out of all of these in terms of Orbital's quite literary. Rapture is probably a little bit more literary. We'll talk about that in a second. But that doesn't take anything away from Bonnie Garmus. This was her debut novel, which is amazing. And this is just such a page-turner, such an entertaining, hilarious page-turner book with absolutely brilliant characters, a really engaging, inspiring story. It's kind of the perfect holiday book, really. If you somehow haven't read it like I hadn't, go and read it. I think everybody will like this book. The main character is Elizabeth Zott. She is a female in the 60s who wants to be a chemist, studying abiogenesis, and it just experiences all of the struggles, all of the cruelty, all of the prejudice that women face in that industry and in many, many other ways back in the 60s. And it's part a love story, it's part a story of her taking on this TV show and inspiring a whole bunch of women to just stop accepting the boundaries, the silly, ridiculous, stupid boundaries that were put in place based on gender, based on sex, based on men's fragile egos, and instead go and change the world. Elizabeth Zott is one of the best characters. She's so memorable. She's so funny. She is so strong-willed, and there's just some of the way Bonnie Garmus writes scenes, writes dialogue, it just crackles and fizzles and pops, and it's just electric when you read it. She knows exactly where to end a scene, exactly where to start it, and so there really doesn't feel like an ounce of fat in this book. I can't really say that as I was reading it, I felt like it slowed down or that it got boring unnecessarily. It just was brilliant. It's tragic at times, and there were a couple of times where it made me cry with just how affirming and profound it was, and it was quite unexpected for me, and I really appreciate it for that. It spoke to me in a number of ways in my life at the moment, and yeah, I'll definitely reread this again. I definitely recommend this book, really, for anyone. You know, I understand if you're not necessarily interested in Orbital or other books that may be a little bit more literary, but still definitely recommend you give it a go. But yeah, this is a bit of a slam dunk. It's really well written. It's fantastic characters. It's 5 out of 5 for me. I loved it. Okay. Then I read Rapture by Emily McGuire. And this was also fantastic. This, I guess there's a bit of a theme in the 3 books that we've talked about so far. They're all written by women. They all feature sort of women breaking down stereotypes or sort of pro-feminist, however you'd want to phrase it, storylines. And in this, we get a real sort of unpacking, deconstruction of the Roman Catholic Church, or the Roman Church in the kind of 800s AD, where our main character lives. So Agnes, she grows up as a motherless daughter of an English priest who's living in Mainz, and what I love about this book is how vivid the description of her relationship with God is, and you know, even though there's some sort of deconstruction and criticism of the church in this book, and some of it, a lot of it, is justified. What I really appreciated was the sensitivity and the subjectivity of how her relationship with God is described. And over the course of the novel, as someone of faith myself, that was done very well. There wasn't any sort of sarcasm or naivety or sort of, it was just treated really well. And it doesn't mean that, So basically Agnes gets to the point where she's kind of needs to pretend to keep serving God, and she wants to serve God. She has to pretend to be a man to be able to be accepted into this monastery. And the novel follows along from there. It's a love story. It's a criticism and deconstruction of the way a woman who wants to serve God, and frankly, in the book, is serving God with purity, with honesty, with no ulterior motive. She's not seeking power. She's not seeking wealth. She's not seeking all of these things for herself. She's doing it genuinely. She's genuinely living out the teachings of the Christian church. When all these men around her are doing the complete opposite, yet she still has to hide her gender, her sex, because if they found out, she's most likely going to be killed or ostracized. It would be considered the most profound sort of sin, which, again, a lot of these themes are talked about in this book. And it is really well written. I think it took a while for me to get started, but once you're into the flow of the story, again, I found this was just an absolute page turner and was just really beautifully written. And a lot of novels about religion often can be a bit didactic. They can either kind of be a bit preachy, or they can sort of just be really judgmental. What I really like about this book is Emily McGuire, she never really sort of falls into either of those camps. She treats her main character with such respect, and it's actually an even purer and stronger commentary on the patriarchy and the mistreatment and just the frank injustice, and just the way that all of the men in the story are actually not even following the truth of the Christian religion. That we have a character who's so pure, and it's just a really good dynamic, a really pure dynamic in the story, and it kind of rises really well to this crescendo of an ending, a barn burner of an ending. I'm not going to spoil anything. It's a tragic, it's a beautiful, it's a profound ending where everything made sense. It just completely flowed on from what we'd been told, and the story kind of reaches its logical conclusion. And as a way to end the story was a strong kind of way to end this book. And yeah, I, again, really enjoyed it. Definitely recommend, especially if you are, again, person of faith, or you've been in touch or grown up or been around, even if you haven't, because they play a big role, whether you like it or not, in the world today. It's a really great book, and I think you will like it as well. I'm going to give it 4 out of 5 stars. Okay, I am back. Here is The Great Gatsby. Let's talk about it. Obviously, The Great Gatsby has been lauded as one of the best American novels. And I think in the first third of the novel, I was definitely a little bit in my own head about what was happening, my expectations, and once I sort of let myself just surrender to the story, and the story sort of unfolded, I think I got swept up. And basically the second half of the novel I read in one sitting. Let's get this out of the way. F. Scott Fitzgerald is a stunning author. Some of the language, some of the words, the sentences, the poetry, the prose in this novel is quite exquisite and profound. And I think it's one of those novels where the story itself is inextricably linked with the thematic message of the novel. And by no means this is a preachy book, but I think it's very clear that this is a criticism of the American dream. This is set in around about the 1920s, the Roaring '20s, and I think F. Scott Fitzgerald is the whole story of Great Gatsby. He is a literal embodiment of the American dream and of wanting something, in this case Daisy, that he tries so hard and waits so long and does so much to try and achieve, and it all ends in tragedy. It doesn't go well for Gatsby, and there's a real way that F. Scott Fitzgerald shows how kind of people are pulled into Gatsby's orbit and sort of share his dream as well. They look at him and they look at his parties and his lavish living, and they're drawn in. And it's really only our main character that kind of sees through the facade, gets to know Gatsby a little bit better, knows that he's come from nothing, has kind of built himself up, again, the American dream, into this sort of mythical figure in West Egg. But it's all a bit of a facade, and the commentary, I guess, and just the last 2 pages of this novel, the last line. So we beat on, boats against the current, borne back ceaselessly into the past. That gives you an understanding of just how metaphorical, how figurative his language is, but just how beautiful and how sort of vivid his writing is. There's probably 100 quotes you could pull out of this novel, and I don't know, I think I believe in the hype. I think that revisiting novel, I'll only discover more and more of the richness. I think it is a novel that's very well structured and rises to a rising action, to this kind of tension, this climax, and then has this sort of denouement where it's a chance for everybody to kind of reflect on what's happened and how this has all gone about. So, worth reading. I think once I got my head out of the sort of funny space, when you hear about, much lauded art, it's hard not to go in with lofty expectations. And I think to start off with, I was a little bit unsure of where it was going. And then when we understood what was happening, then that's when things sort of came alive for me. There's not many authors who can write this well, dare I say. There's a reason why it's so beloved, I think, and why it's so lauded. I think it's structurally and technically extremely proficient, and it does what every kind of good novel does, which is give a great story, but there's layers, and it feels like in one reading I probably haven't even mined the amount of layers, I guess, that are in this novel. I think for now I'm going to give it 4 stars. Maybe let's give it 4.5. We'll give it 4.5 stars. It could go up to 5 for me later, but very much enjoyed The Great Gatsby. It was worth finishing so that I could talk about it in this video. And yeah. Well, I don't know how often I'll do videos like these. Definitely, if you want to hear or see or read more of what I do, you can go to my website. You can keep checking out this page. It's not really designed, it's just designed as a way for me to talk about the things that I love. And if you love film and books and music and TV and all of those things as well, then why don't you join me? And I'd love to hear what you have to say as well. But if you watched this whole thing, thank you. It means a lot to me. And I hope that you maybe got some travel inspiration and some book inspiration at the same time. So until next time, bye.